Who would have thought something like this would happen to him? After a long day at work, all he wanted was to kick back with a beer and play some games. But he ended up dozing off and suddenly woke up inside the game world. A white-haired woman yells for Kadim to watch out for the demons. Our main character replies that he'll take care of them in a flash and charges forward. From there, he throws himself at the enemies with insane speed. Wasting no time, the guy immediately crashes into the first giant monster. Several terrifying-looking demons stared him down, ready to attack. With a single swing, a beam of light easily slices through one of the creatures. Kadim then becomes a blur of power, dicing up all the remaining monsters. And just like that, the demons' bodies begin to drop to the ground one by one. At the end of the fight, our hero stands tall amidst the dust. He gets up without a single scratch, showing off his immense strength. The guy comments that the demon realm is pretty tough right from the start. Because of this, he realizes the path to the final boss is going to be a rough one. Putting that aside, our MC seems to have another worry on his mind. He already knows he's definitely going to get an airful from Melissa. With that, a rain of fire pours down on the enemies in front of him. In the distance, a female voice desperately screams his name. The mage, Melissa, scolds him for charging in alone without warning. But before she can continue, someone interrupts her by grabbing her arm. Right after, a man in armor charges toward two monsters. This is Gale, the group's hero, and he draws his sword for battle. The warrior tells her to save the scolding for after the fight is over. The mage complains that Gale is way too by the book, and it's getting old. At the same time, the priestess Cyril says a prayer for the group. She seems worried about Kadim and fears he's pushing himself too hard. At that moment, one of the demons is crushed by a power of light. Seeing the situation, the priest Gordon tells Cyril not to worry. He assures her that Kadim has a plan, and the young woman calms down. Gordon suggests taking care of the monsters first and talking to the guy later. Melissa agrees with the plan, and the team charges at the enemies. Our hero introduces himself as Kadim and points out his companions: Gale the hero, Cyril the priestess, Gordon the priest, and Melissa the mage. He's the vanguard of the hero's party, destined to defeat the archdemon, a great warrior of the god of combat and savagery. But behind that serious look, there's a very important secret. Turns out, he's actually a possessor inside the game, just a regular dude who unwillingly ended up in this body. The game is called Crazy Warrior, and the story is pretty simple. A hero gathers a party to take down the final boss. The problem is, the archdemon and its army are seriously terrifying. Maybe some people are into this kind of adventure, but he is not one of them. For a modern guy who's never even heard a fly, being in the middle of a battle against so many monsters is a total nightmare. Kadim drinks something from a cask. Probably to power up, this world was simply too much for him to handle. Facing a new horde of bizarre creatures, he prepares himself. The guy faces his fears head on once again. His unique trait is Blood Berserker, which makes him stronger. By consuming demon blood, he gets a special buff. With that, our MC just needs a little more power. He thinks that if he just takes out all the enemies, everything will be over. And so, he transforms, getting bigger and stronger. The guy believes this is how he can finally say goodbye to this world. With red eyes and covered in blood, he attacks without mercy. His desperation turns him into a true beast. Completely transformed, he has only one desire on his mind. He wants to get out of this hellish world at any cost. The guy just wants to get out of that place faster and faster. He can't stand another second in this awful world. With that, our hero climbs a mountain of demon corpses. He shows that his fury has no limits and continues to fight. His hatred is so intense that the guy starts to devour the remains. He completely loses himself in his thirst for destruction. Suddenly, a new horned demoness appears running. She seems ready to face the crazed warrior. Kadim stares at her with a look full of rage and contempt. He couldn't care less about anything other than destroying everything. The creature attacks him, but he screams that he'll devour them all. His promise echoes across the bloody battlefield. His face twists into a manic, terrifying smile. He swears that absolutely nothing will be left behind. Right after, he grabs the demoness with his giant hand. The guy says he's going to drink every last drop of her blood. At that moment, a bright light shines and voices call out to him. His friends desperately plead for him to stop. The warrior is confused and hears someone call his name. The voice sounds familiar, but he can't quite place it. It turns out the person he was attacking was Melissa. She's on the ground, badly injured and covered in blood. He then realizes he's trapped by a spell of light. The magic is stopping him from continuing his brutal attack. Shocked, the guy returns to normal and stammers her name. The reality of what he's done finally starts to sink in. Seeing the state of his companion, he's completely stunned. Our MC can't believe the scene in front of him. The Berserker power made him lose his sanity and attack his friends. He wonders if he's reached the point of not recognizing anyone. That simple game description has now become a real, twisted nightmare. The insanity relentlessly pierces our hero's mind. With that, he feels himself sinking into a sea of blood and despair. The demonic energy is slowly consuming him. The blood that was once disgusting now tastes sweet to him. The thirst to destroy is completely devouring his mind. As a result, it's becoming harder and harder to suppress these fits of madness. He wonders if he can stay sane until the end. Because of this, he knows he needs to take down the archdemon quickly. It's the only way to end all of this and be free. But Melissa hugs him from behind, trying to bring him back to his senses. She screams his name with all her might. With a weak smile, the mage says everything is okay and that she feels fine. She asks our hero not to blame himself for what happened. The young woman reminds him that he always protected them, and now it's their turn. Filled with regret, Kadim can only apologize. Seeing the scene, Cyril and Gordon approach Lord Kadim. They seem worried about their companion's condition. The priestess promises they'll do everything they can to keep him from going mad. They ask him to fight and hold on until the very end. Gordon even jokes, saying he'll knock some sense into him if needed. The priest tells him not to worry about it. At that moment, Gale steps on a body and asks if they're done resting. He seems ready to continue the journey. The hero looks at the guy and says that if the break is over, it's time to move. They can't waste any more time standing around. Extending a hand, Gale affirms they need to defeat the final boss together. It's the only way to truly save this world. Kadim looks at the hero's outstretched hand, still holding Melissa in his arms. The group's bond seems stronger than ever. With that, Kadim accepts the hero's hand, sealing the pact between them, and so, they moved forward with their bodies and souls in tatters. After a long time, they finally reach their destination. Gale then shouts his companion's name in the final battle. Our MC raises his axe for one last attack. He prepares to deliver the finishing blow to the archdemon. The creature faces the blade head on with no way to escape. The warrior brings his weapon down with devastating force. Meanwhile, Gale also uses his power in the form of a hurricane. The hero takes on the task of clearing out the remaining enemies. Seeing the final result of the fight, the blonde man sighs in relief. He can hardly believe it's finally all over. The great demon's body remains standing, even without a head, a bizarre sight that leaves everyone there impressed. A moment later, the monster crumbles to dust and disappears. The great threat that terrorized the world has been defeated. Faced with this scene of pure destruction, Melissa observes everything. The mage just stands there, not knowing how to react to the silence. With her book in her arms, she wonders if it's really over. The young woman still can't believe they managed to win. Gordon approaches and places a hand on his companion's shoulder. He tries to comfort her after everything that's happened. The priest affirms that by the grace of the goddess, it seems so. Their long and painful journey has finally come to an end. The mage repeats to herself that it's really the end of everything. Her eyes fill with a mix of relief and exhaustion. But suddenly her expression changes to pure shock and confusion. Something completely unexpected happens, leaving her speechless. The scene shifts to a desolate and seemingly rainy place. We see only two figures walking without a clear destination. Cyril falls to the ground, completely confused, and wonders what's happening. Desperate, the blindfolded priestess asks where Lord Kadim is. The guy's axe is on the ground, and his silhouette runs into the distance. Gale yells for his companion to stop and asks where he thinks he's going. Our MC just stops and stays silent for a moment. With that, he turns his head back, looking at his friends from the corner of his eye. He gives a slight smile and says it was truly an honor to be with them. From there, he says his goodbyes and disappears in a flash of light as Gale tries to reach him. An explosion of light blinds the hero, who fails to catch him. Right after, the priestess plummets from a cliff, unable to react. The fall is brutal, and the young woman hits the ground hard, lying motionless. And so, she's left lying alone in a desolate and strange place. With her last bit of strength, Cyril whispers her companion's name. Meanwhile, our hero walks through a dark and endless void. He realizes nothing has changed and wonders what he'll do when he gets back. The first thing he's going to do is have an ice-cold beer and then crash. He swears he will never play a medieval fantasy game again in his life. Despite that, the guy feels bad for not saying a proper goodbye to his friends, but he knows he has to accept reality and move on. So, he prepares to say his final farewell to the great warrior Kadim. It's time to leave behind the life he had in that world. Before him, a portal of light appears, which he believes is the exit. That path would lead him back to his normal, peaceful life. However, as he approaches the door, he realizes something is very wrong. His eyes widen in pure panic, and he breaks into a cold sweat. Desperate, the guy hopes it's all just a nightmare. He can't believe what's about to happen. A cross-shaped light appears in front of him, confirming his fears. That symbol was definitely not a good sign for him. Because of this, our hero starts to laugh out of nervousness and despair. The realization that he's not going home has finally hit him. His laughter turns into a scream of pure anguish and frustration. All his suffering seems to have been completely in vain. Facing the blinding light, he continues to laugh uncontrollably. The poor guy simply can't take this situation anymore. Suddenly the message, New Game Plus, appears, restarting the game. All his effort was thrown down the drain in one go. The scene then shifts to a dirt road with several soldiers. They are escorting prisoners and a cart through a green field. To our hero's misfortune, he's one of the prisoners. His hands are bound by tightly fastened iron shackles. The procession moves slowly along the dirt road. No one seems to care about the fate of these men. The other prisoners shout, either swearing their innocence or complaining about being robbed. Each one there seemed to have a different story to tell. One of the guards gets annoyed with the noise and tells everyone to shut up. He seems really stressed by the whole situation and glares at the prisoners with contempt. The officer grumbles that the trash is being too loud today, treating everyone horribly. Despite this, one of the men approaches the guard and says he's innocent. The guard stares at him and asks who he is, and the poor guy looks terrified. He swears he never sold demonic items and that it was all a big frame-up. The officer just watches the man in silence, showing no reaction. The prisoner thinks there's always someone who will frame an innocent person just to get ahead. With that, the guard looks at a paladin on horseback, thinking that he's young but still a paladin. He knows that if he messes up, it's his head on the line, and he glares angrily at the prisoner. In a threatening tone, he asks if the man dares to doubt a paladin. The guard says that if he's innocent, he'll be set free, and tells him to get back in his place. With nothing else to do, the poor man returns to the line of prisoners, head down. The guard thinks it's a shame, but the guy won't survive because of the paladin. Leaving the vendor aside, the guard turns his gaze to someone else in the line. The guard's attention shifts to a prisoner next to him, a massive man. The officer wonders how they managed to capture such a strong barbarian. Our hero walks with the others, but his presence intimidates everyone. The guy tries to understand what happened to put him in this situation. Looking at his hands, he feels the familiar body, but without its previous power. Apparently, the madness and guilt that were devouring him have also disappeared. Based on that new game text, he understands that he restarted the game. Even so, he's still confused because the actual game didn't start like this. Suddenly, an old man next to him strikes up a friendly conversation. The old man offers our hero a type of root to eat. He suggests that Kadim chew on the root to make the journey less boring. Our hero stays quiet, just analyzing the old man's unexpected gesture. Smiling, the old man explains that barbarians once helped him, and Kadim reminds him of them. With his hands bound, the guy holds the root the old man offered him. The old man asks how he got caught, but our hero just says he doesn't know. The old man just nods, seeming to understand the situation. Our hero thinks that paladins are hostile to those who don't follow their faith. So he asks about this so-called empire, and the old man is quite surprised. Kadim remembers Lucania as a kingdom and wonders if he's landed in a parallel world. He asks where they're going, and the old man says it's to the empire's capital. Once there, they'll be judged by the inquisitors, and he'll have a heresy trial. The guy is relieved he won't be eliminated right away, which is something. But the old man is terrified by his calmness and asks how he can be relieved. The man explains that the inquisitors are crazy about severe punishments. He continues describing the horrible things they do to the prisoners. At that, the paladin gets annoyed with the conversation and attacks the old man without a second thought. The old man is hit squarely, and a blue light glows on his wounded chest. The paladin then shouts that anyone who insults Elga's agents will pay with their life. And to top it off, he even gives a cynical little smirk, showing his cruelty. From there, the paladin's horse simply turns and continues walking. The paladin approaches and asks our hero if he was the one who caused the commotion. Next, the knight threatens him, telling him to beg for forgiveness if he doesn't want to meet the same end. With an arrogant smile, the blonde man says he'll let him live if he begs. Faced with the situation, our hero just flashes a mocking smile. This infuriates the paladin, who shouts about how a mere heretic dares to mock him. A moment later, he charges with his glowing spear, calling it blasphemy. Our hero faces the approaching spear tip without showing any fear. The knight is completely shocked, not understanding what just happened. Turns out, Kadim caught the spear with his bare hands, even while shackled. The paladin screams in pain as he tries to pull his weapon back without success. Desperate, the blonde man tells our hero to let him go immediately. The guy replies that if that's what he wants, then fine. From there, he yanks the spear with all his might, pulling the knight off his horse. Now on the ground, the paladin shouts that he will judge this blasted heretic right now. But his look of anger quickly turns to pure terror. And just like that, our hero leaps with incredible force towards the paladin. The impact of the attack kicks up a huge cloud of dust. The guy lands on his feet while the knight and his horse are down on the ground. Both were thrown far away and seem to be badly hurt by the blow. Kadim just stands there in silence, observing the scene without any reaction. But the paladin gets up furious and curses our hero, calling him a filthy heretic. He can't believe a mere heretic dared to harm an agent of a god. The guy thinks that even if he's just a kid, a paladin is still a paladin. The tip of the knight's spear begins to glow with a very intense light. He then raises his weapon to the sky, preparing a new, powerful attack. Our hero is surprised to see the power the blonde man is gathering. The knight begins to pray to his goddess Elga, the master of eternal brilliance. Bathed in light, he asks his goddess to punish this servant of evil. With a look of pure rage, he prepares to deliver the final blow. Faced with the situation, he charges full speed at our hero. The knight charges forward with his spear glowing, ready for the final attack. Our hero senses the strength of that power and prepares for the worst. He knows he can't dodge and has to take the hit head on. With that, the paladin unleashes a devastating wave of golden energy. The attack hits Kadam squarely, even breaking his shackles with its force. The dust settles, revealing a huge crater where the guy is lying. Even injured, he uses a blue light on his chest to heal himself slowly. The knight is shocked that our hero survived the attack. Mockingly, the blonde man says he's as ugly as his skin is thick. Kadam thinks that without his old stats, he's in serious trouble. He regrets not having any demons nearby to use his ability. Desperate, the guy looks for a way to escape the situation. Suddenly, he smells a familiar scent coming from the destroyed cart. Meanwhile, the paladin approaches to deliver the finishing blow. The knight acknowledges his strength, but says this is where it ends for him. The knight tells him to obtain the goddess Elga's forgiveness through his demise. Suddenly, the paladin's expression changes to pure shock and surprise. With that, he covers his nose and asks what that horrible smell is. Our hero just stares at the knight and starts to laugh mockingly. His laughter gets louder and louder, and the blonde man asks if he's gone crazy. Kadam taunts him, saying the goddess Elga chose him, not the rookie knight. From there, he shoves his hand into the cart's wreckage, looking for something. A moment later, he pulls out a goblin head that was hidden there. The guy tosses the head towards the paladin, who backs away in disgust. At that moment, the mark on his chest begins to glow with a bluish light. His eyes are shadowed, and a sinister smile appears on his face. Holding the monster's head, he stares at the paladin with a terrifying look. Faced with the situation, he brings the head close to his face without hesitation. The monster's blood begins to run down and drip onto his body. He then lifts the head, preparing to drink all the blood. Everyone watches in silence, not understanding the bizarre scene. The paladin thinks our hero has gone mad from the smell of blood. Disgusted, he points to a guard and orders him to finish the guy off. The soldier advances, trembling, as Kadam's body emanates a red aura. The poor guard is terrified and can barely hold his weapon. Even scared, he yells and charges at our hero with everything he's got. But the guy is faster and grabs the soldier's face with a single hand. Our hero's hand squeezes the guard's face with incredible force. And so, the poor soldier doesn't stand a chance against the warrior's strength. Desperate, the man begs for the guy to spare his life. Our hero squeezes harder, ignoring the poor man's pleas. Seeing the brutal scene, the paladin is shocked and completely speechless. Without any mercy, he finishes the guard with a single powerful blow. He realizes the power boost isn't huge, but it's more than enough to get out of there. With a terrifying smile, he shouts that this is more than enough. Our hero lets out a roar of fury, releasing his red aura. Faced with that scene, the guards are completely terrified, not knowing what to do. One of them can barely speak and starts to tremble with pure fear. From there, he screams desperately to everyone that the guy is a monster. Without a second thought, the soldiers drop their weapons on the ground. With that, they all start running away, trying to save their own lives. The paladin furiously yells at them not to retreat and to subdue the prisoner. A moment later, he threatens to punish anyone who flees the battle. Even so, the knight knows that if he gets hit a few more times, it'll be the end for him. Taking advantage of the distraction, our hero throws the monster's head. The paladin is caught by surprise and ends up falling to the ground from the impact. Stunned, the blonde man groans in pain, unable to get up quickly. When he turns, he sees the demon's head and is confused by the situation. The knight breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the danger he's in. At that moment, his gaze fills with panic as he sees something terrible. With his red eyes glowing, our hero charges forward with full force. Faced with the situation, the knight prepares for combat, kneeling on the ground. He prays to his goddess Elga, asking for the power to defeat this servant of evil. His eyes shine with an intense light, and he fills with divine power. From there, the blonde man advances with his spear in hand for the final confrontation. With a battle cry, he swears to end this in the name of his goddess. The two clash in a bright flash, and the knight manages to pierce our hero. With a victorious smile, he says it's a shame, but this is the end for the barbarian. But Kadam looks at him and asks mockingly if that's all he's got. The knight is shocked and breaks into a cold sweat, not understanding his resilience. Turns out our hero caught the spear with his bare hands. Right after he prepares a punch, his hand glowing red. The punch lands squarely, and a shower of blood flies everywhere. The impact is so strong that the knight is thrown far away, crashing to the ground. Covered in blood, our hero just stands there, telling him to stop. Lying on the ground and all beaten up, the paladin begs for forgiveness. Our hero stands still while the blonde man continues to beg for his life. Seemingly granting his request, Kadam turns and starts to walk away. But inside, the knight curses him and swears he'll get revenge for this humiliation. Still on the ground, the blonde man breathes heavily, thinking about what to do. He swears he will have his revenge in Elga's name but notices something strange. Our hero's spear drags on the ground, making a terrifying noise. Turns out, the guy was just grabbing the weapon to come back and finish the job. Seeing his shadow approach, the paladin goes into a total panic. The poor guy's eyes fill with pure despair and fear of what's to come. Our hero comments that even in this situation, he's still praying to his goddess. With the spear in hand, he hopes the blonde man finds his goddess in the afterlife. Desperate, the knight yells for him to wait and not to do it. But Kadam just curses him and brings the spear down without any mercy. And so, he finishes the paladin for good and stands there, watching the scene. Covered in blood, our hero just observes the result of his fury. In the distance, he sees the last of the guards running desperately down the road. The soldiers scream in terror, fleeing from the monster that destroyed everything. With that, the guy remembers an important lesson from his past life. The guards keep running without looking back, panting from exhaustion. One of them looks back and for a second thinks he managed to escape. But his hope dies when a spear suddenly pierces through his body. The weapon skewers all the soldiers in a line with unbelievable force. The lesson was simple and clear: never leave any loose ends. Hiding in the bushes, the last guard trembles in fear, watching the horrific scene. He covers his mouth and prays not to be found by that demon. But our hero slowly turns his head in the direction of the bush. Wasting no time, he throws another spear with terrifying precision. The weapon flies through the air like a missile and hits the hiding spot squarely. And just like that, the last survivor is finished off with no chance to escape. Suddenly, a voice calls him and our hero turns around slowly. The old man who helped him earlier praises him for finishing off the paladin. He says he has something to tell him. But before he can finish, his head explodes. A red shower spreads everywhere, staining the grass. Faced with the scene, the other prisoners are paralyzed with pure terror. The guy is just following a lesson he learned on his first journey. With that, the other men start to back away slowly, terrified. The lesson was simple, and he would never again forget to not leave loose ends. The prisoners' faces twist in pure despair and panic. One of them then asks why he's doing this and what they did wrong. Our hero grabs him with the spear while the poor guy begs him to stop. But with a cold look, the guy prepares to deliver the final blow without hesitation. After everything, he just stands in silence, observing the battlefield. And so, he stands alone amidst all the bodies lying on the ground. The guy thinks that if he had let them live, they would have told everyone, and he'd be hunted by paladins. With the spear in hand, he states that he can't take that kind of risk. Meanwhile, one of the prisoners hides and cries in pure fear. The poor guy is curled up in the bushes, shaking uncontrollably with nowhere to run. Suddenly, our hero approaches, and the man screams in terror. Facing the last survivor, the guy says he's the only one left to finish the job. With that, Kadam raises his spear, preparing to deliver the final blow. The man screams that it's unfair, but our hero doesn't seem to care. Seeing the spear approach, the prisoner just trembles, unable to react. Desperate, he begs for mercy, swearing he did nothing wrong. Kadim then tells him to give one good reason why he shouldn't end him right there. The man says he has a wife and child waiting, and that he was framed unfairly. Our hero says he seems innocent, but that's not a reason to live. At the last second, the prisoner desperately screams the word, guide. He asks if the warrior doesn't need a guide for his journey. Surprised by the offer, our hero wonders what he means by that. The man says he's a traveling merchant and knows the geography better than anyone. Our hero asks when Lucaonia became an empire, as he remembered it being a kingdom. The question leaves the merchant completely confused and clueless. He thinks the guy is a barbarian from the mountains who lost contact centuries ago. Kadam gets annoyed with the silence and asks if he doesn't know the answer. The man says that 248 years have passed since the empire was founded. Our hero asks what year it would be on the solar-lunar calendar. The merchant replies that they don't use that calendar anymore, but it would be the year 1130. The guy is shocked to learn that the continent's common calendar has become ancient. With that, he asks about the Church of Elga and the Demon Realm. The man explains that the continent is now divided into 3 factions. The church has grown in power, and from the Demon Realm, no one who enters returns. Kadim is shocked to learn that no one has ever returned from the Demon Realm. From there, he asks if the man has ever heard of Gale, Melissa, Gordon, or Cyril. Terrified, the merchant replies that he has never heard of those names in his life. Suddenly, the merchant remembers and repeats the name Melissa with surprise. Our hero realizes that maybe he knows the name from somewhere. The man tries to remember, saying similar names like Elisa or Melisa. Kadim is confused because the heroes couldn't have been forgotten like that. His mind works quickly, trying to make sense of all this madness. He then asks why there are so many demons, and the man says no one knows. Some say it's a divine punishment from the goddess Elga because of corruption. Others blame a mad archmage or the arrival of a great ancient evil. But only the gods above the clouds can know the truth. Our hero remains silent, processing all the information. With a swift movement, he forcefully stabs the tip of the spear into the ground. The merchant gets scared, and Kadam simply walks past him without a word. From there, the guy starts to walk alone towards the horizon. He finally understands that he's on the continent 300 years after his journey. The guy feels like an exile in every world, and his knowledge is now useless. His old comrades in arms now fade away in his memory. He understands that they are all nothing but dust in this new era. The guy wonders if it's worth living, repeating this cycle of slaughter. He has no guarantee that he'll return home if he reaches the end again. And after this New Game Plus, there could very well be a New Game Plus Plus. Completely hopeless, our hero seems to make a drastic decision. With that, he breaks the spear he was using with his bare hands without hesitation. The merchant is completely shocked, not understanding what's happening. From there, the guy points the sharp tip of the weapon at his own neck. He prepares to end it all right there, once and for all. Desperate, the merchant asks what he thinks he's doing. Our hero thinks that if he's going to go out, now is the best time, and so, he presses the tip of the spear against his throat with force. The only thing he hopes for is that there isn't a "game over" screen afterwards. With his eyes closed, the warrior prepares to take his last breath. The tip of the spear touches his skin, and he's ready for the end. But a memory of Melissa flashes in his mind, with her plans for the future. With wide eyes, he seems to have changed his mind at the last second. Our hero then grabs the merchant and asks about the name Melissa. The man says that the name of the first master of the tower was something very similar to that. The guy asks where this tower is, and the merchant replies that it's in Vistana. He explains that the journey will take at least 2 months from here. Kadam stays silent, processing the new information he just received. With a faint smile, he mutters that the poor guy said that at the wrong time. Remembering Melissa, he realizes he can't bring himself to go through with it, even if he wants to. So, he orders the man to guide him via the fastest road to the tower. Our hero thinks he can't waste too much time acting as a guide himself. He grabs the merchant's arm and says he'll give him the most precious payment. With a serious look, the warrior states that the payment will be his life. The bloody spear tip falls to the ground, symbolizing his new decision. Kadam orders him to get ready, as they're leaving immediately. The merchant agrees without complaint. Our hero then finds a sword in the wreckage of the cart. He picks it up and thinks that even though it's not a sacred weapon, it'll do. The guy regrets not being able to take the paladin's spear, because it's a consecrated item. With that, he laments not having his old axe from the first journey. Meanwhile, the merchant gets his things together and sighs in relief for having survived. Suddenly, our hero hands him a canteen full of demon blood. He then grabs his new equipment, preparing for the journey. With everything ready, he says it's time to go, and the merchant looks scared. From there, the two begin their journey towards the Tower of Magic. Back at the site of the massacre, some crows circle over the bodies on the ground. The sinister-looking birds begin to approach the remains. At that moment, a new pair of paladins finds the body of Linton Pelifus. The knight notes that everyone was wiped out and asks what they'll do now. The woman named Lady Helix just looks at him with a serious and confident expression. Helix orders Ethan to look for any clue he can find. They can't go back to the Archbishop with nothing to show. The knight agrees with the order, while the young woman mutters that the whole situation is pathetic. Standing over the paladin's body, she wonders who would have the nerve to take out a holy agent. And on top of that, the Archbishop's godson. With a look full of fury, the warrior swears that no matter who the culprits are, she guarantees they will pay dearly for what they've done. The scene then shifts to a dark and silent night with a full moon in the sky. Far away in a forest, our hero rests by a campfire. Over time, the campfire's flames slowly begin to die down. Taking advantage of the calm night, Kadam lies down to rest a bit. Next to him is his backpack with supplies for the long journey. Suddenly, someone starts running desperately through the dark woods. The person runs out of breath, panting from so much effort and exhaustion. We see that it's the merchant, fleeing and shouting that he finally managed to escape. With a face full of terror, he thinks he needs to get as far away as possible. He remembers thinking it was dangerous to leave the Empire and considered getting a companion. But in his mind, the companion is a barbarian who eats demons and takes out dozens of men. After everything, he still observes the warrior for a few days, and ends up realizing that he's truly a monster. The merchant offers him some dried meat and potatoes. Our hero just silently observes the man. Scared, the man offers him a place to lie down near a campfire, but the guy continues to say absolutely nothing. He tries to ask how the warrior ended up in the Empire but gives up. The merchant decides it's better to keep his mouth shut. And so he realizes the barbarian barely talks to people and also forbids any unnecessary questions. No matter how much he observes him, he can't read his thoughts. To the merchant, the guy isn't human, but a wild beast. Faced with the situation, he feels like he's performing a circus act, as if he has his head in a lion's mouth every single day. If that were the only problem, he could handle it somehow. But the truth is, the merchant is completely exhausted. The biggest problem is that barbarian's ridiculous marching speed. Our hero turns and says he's too slow. The man says he may not look it, but he's a very fast and tireless merchant. He considers himself the best of the best in his profession, but whenever he points the way, the warrior is already way ahead. Before he even realizes it, the guy is out of sight, and when he finally manages to catch up after a lot of effort, the warrior just makes a cold comment and starts walking again. From then on, he just stares at him until he finally arrives. The guy's look is like a huge threat to him. He feels like our hero would crush his skull if he's late. Without him as a guide, they would already be dozens of miles away. The merchant wonders if that man's legs are made of steel. He's already on the verge of a nervous breakdown and can't take it anymore. He feels like he's actually going to perish and needs to escape somehow. That travel pace is simply impossible for a human. With that, the opportunity to escape came sooner than he expected. The merchant runs with all his might through the dark night. Now that he's escaped into the darkness of the forest, he believes he's safe. The warrior won't be able to tell which way he went. Suddenly, the man groans in pain and frustration as he remembers something. He forgot something very important behind. Turns out his pouch, which holds his entire fortune, was left with the warrior. It has candles, soap, a mirror, and even an old ring. If he tried to get the pouch, he would surely wake the sleeping beast. He laments the loss, but his life is much more precious. And so, the merchant continues his desperate escape through the woods. He just wants to get as far away from that monster as possible. He doesn't know how long he's been running and feels completely lost. But he believes that with this much distance, he's already safe. With a sigh of relief, the poor guy celebrates that he's finally free. He can hardly believe he managed to escape with his life. But suddenly, a familiar voice asks where he's going in such a hurry. The man freezes completely, paralyzed with pure fear. He can't believe it and wonders how it's possible. His eyes widen in terror as he slowly turns around. Before him, our hero appears and asks why he's running away. The guy's expression is serious and intimidating, as always. The warrior stares at him and asks if he no longer needs the promised payment. His gaze leaves the poor merchant speechless. Stuttering with fear, the man can't even form a complete sentence. He's trembling from head to toe, not knowing what to do. From there, he throws himself on the ground and shouts that he has committed a mortal sin. He swears he will never again forget the grace of having his life saved. Desperate, he begs for forgiveness and asks the warrior to pardon him just this once. But our hero says he doesn't want excuses. But the reason for the escape? If he doesn't solve the problem, the man will just run away again. With a serious look, the guy demands he explain why he tried to flee. The merchant stammers and says the warrior's pace is too fast for him. He felt that if he kept trying to keep up, he would end up perishing on the way. Faced with silence, the poor guy closes his eyes and thinks he's definitely going to meet his end. Our hero just stays silent for a moment, thinking about what to do. From there, he gets up and tells them to go back to the camp. The merchant is shocked, not understanding the guy's reaction. With that, Kadam says that from now on, he'll walk a little slower. The man can hardly believe what he just heard, and so our hero turns and starts walking back to the fire. The merchant is completely confused, not understanding the barbarian's unexpected behavior. A moment later, the two are back at the camp with the fire lit. The man sleeps peacefully while our hero keeps watch. But the poor guy seems to be having a nightmare and mutters, asking for forgiveness. He says it was a mistake and begs to be spared. Our hero just watches him in silence, seeming to reflect on the situation. The guy thinks his fast pace is a habit from the first journey. Every moment felt urgent, as if he were being hunted. That was a hell where everything was barren and hostile. Food and water were never abundant, and rest was a luxury. Our hero then lets out a long sigh of relief. That time of pure desperation was finally behind him. Unlike that inferno, the current surroundings aren't as dangerous. Food and water are plentiful, and he can rest in peace. Besides, he found a good reason to slow down. The fact that this merchant is a very useful guide. The merchant says there's a lot of friction on the border recently. He suggests a detour to a side where the guard is weaker. Faced with the proposal, our hero just replies, "If you say so." The man seems relieved by the warrior's response. With that, the guy agrees and tells them to do as the guide suggests. The merchant flashes a satisfied and confident smile. Our hero thinks he has a map of the continent in his head. But it's a map from over 300 years ago. The merchant explains that most paladins are obsessed with their records. That's why they hunt nearby demons with fire in their eyes. The guy was wondering why it was so hard to find demons. Now he understands it was because of the paladins. With that, he looks at his canteen and realizes the blood will soon be unusable. He needs to secure some fresh blood just in case. The scene then shifts to a dark night in the forest. The crescent moon shines in the sky, lighting the path. Suddenly, our hero stops and the merchant turns in surprise. He doesn't understand why the warrior stopped so suddenly. The man points ahead and says there's a village right there. They can rest and restock before continuing their journey. The merchant says it looks like a farming village. He suggests it would be the best place to ask for food and shelter. Our hero just observes the place with a serious look. He seems to notice that something is very wrong with that village. So, the merchant comments that it's strange there isn't a single light on. He's shocked and wonders what could have happened. And to make matters worse, it's already dinner time, but the wooden gate is open. Plus, there are no guards protecting the entrance. Faced with the situation, the man wonders if it's an abandoned village. The warrior says they'll only know if they go in to check. At that, the merchant is terrified by the idea of going in. He warns that a monster might have appeared and driven everyone out. The silence in the village is unsettling, and nothing moves. The atmosphere of the place gives the poor merchant the creeps. The guy seems to consider the possibility of a monster or demon. The idea doesn't scare him, he actually seems interested. From there, he places his hand firmly on the hilt of his sword. Our hero prepares for any danger that might appear. Without hesitation, the warrior draws his weapon with a determined look. He's more than ready for the battle that might come. With a smirk, he says that's good news. It seems he was in need of some fresh blood after all. So, he enters the village without any fear. The merchant follows him, trembling with terror of what they might find. The man asks what's going on and if the place is empty. He notes that it doesn't look like an abandoned village. Our hero cautiously advances through the dirt streets. He's on alert for any suspicious movement nearby. Suddenly, his gaze fixes on something, and he stops walking. The guy seems to have found the answer to the mystery. The merchant asks why he stopped so suddenly. Not understanding the situation, he seems confused and a little scared by the warrior's silence. He then notices that it's the only house with an open door. From within the darkness, something seems to be watching them intently. Suddenly, a huge foot stumps hard on the dirt ground. The creature prepares to attack without warning. With a terrifying scream, a monster charges forward with a weapon in hand. It looks like some kind of giant, furious goblin. Its red eyes glow in the darkness, showing its thirst for blood. The creature glares at the two intruders with pure hatred. But our hero is faster and takes the monster's head off. The blow is so fast that the creature doesn't even see what happened. And just like that, the goblin's head flies through the air, gushing blood. The brutal scene sends the merchant into a panic. The man screams in pure terror upon seeing the creature's body fall. He wasn't prepared to find something like that there. At that moment, another monster's foot appears in the darkness of the house. It seems the party is just getting started for the warrior. A moment later, several other goblins storm out of the house in a rage. They seem ready to avenge their fallen comrade. The merchant is shocked and says goblins aren't aggressive. Kadim understands that something made them hostile and dangerous. With a smirk, he realizes he came to the right place. He finally found a source of fresh blood. With that, one of the goblins charges with a club to smash him. The creature doesn't seem to care about the warrior's strength. Our hero just retaliates with a glowing sword strike. The blade cuts through the air with impressive speed. The attack hits several monsters at once, leaving them shocked. They didn't expect a human to be so powerful. With a focused look, our hero readies himself for the fight to come. One of the goblins lets out a deafening roar and charges at him without fear. But the warrior is much faster and moves like a blue blur across the area. His strike cuts through the air with impressive force, slicing up the creatures. His sword then collides with a monster's weapon, creating sparks in the air. Right after, another goblin with a mohawk charges with its axe in hand. Wasting no time, our hero already prepares for the next attack. With a swift movement, he easily pierces the chest of one of the creatures. The monster stares at the blade in its chest, not understanding what happened. From there, he finishes the creature with a brutal blow to the head. Our hero holds the monster with one hand and finishes it for good. With all the enemies on the ground, the merchant asks if it's all over. The warrior looks around and replies that maybe it's not over yet. At that moment, a green hand grabs the merchant's leg from behind. The creature forcefully pulls him into the darkness of the nearby house. Turns out, the creature was holding a little girl as a hostage. The merchant is shocked and screams when he realizes it's a child. At that, the goblin lets out a roar of fury, preparing to attack. But our hero throws his sword towards the monster. With incredible precision, he launches the weapon to hit the creature. The blade flies through the air and embeds itself right in the middle of the creature's forehead. The goblin groans in pain, not believing what just happened. With the blow, the monster falls backward, dropping the little girl to the ground. The merchant despairs and asks if he didn't think he might hit the girl. Our hero replies that wouldn't happen and unties the girl. With a serious look, he turns to the little girl and calls her over for a chat. The girl cries in fear, and our hero says he has a few questions. The merchant tries to calm her down, saying they're not bad people. He offers a piece of candy to the little girl, who starts eating it, a bit suspicious. Kadim comments that the merchant has a way with kids, and he boasts about it. The merchant explains he has a son her age at home, hence the knack. Our hero just silently observes the scene. With the candy in her mouth, the little girl starts to stammer the word, mummy. She seems to be remembering something important. Hearing this, the man promises they'll help her find her mother. He tries to cheer the little one up with his bunny puppet, but with tears in her eyes, the girl says her parents abandoned her there. The revelation leaves both men completely shocked. At that, the merchant despairs and asks if they were the ones who tied her up. He can't believe anyone would do that to their own daughter. Our hero then understands the whole bizarre situation of that village. He finally comprehends what happened to the residents. Suddenly, a female voice desperately screams the little girl's name, Rini. The woman seems to be looking for her in the darkness. A crowd of villagers appears with torches, and the woman in front yells at them. She tells everyone to be quiet because of the goblins. The mother runs and hugs her daughter, asking if she's okay, and if she's hurt. Little Rennie just stays silent in her arms. With tears of relief, the woman thanks the gods for her daughter being safe. She seems genuinely happy to have found the little girl. A moment later, the villagers see the pile of goblin corpses on the ground. They are horrified and wonder what happened there. One of the men with a torch asks if it was our hero who did all this. He can hardly believe the scene in front of him. With a cold look, the guy grabs the head of one of the dead monsters. He replies that it wasn't him who did it. From there, he yanks his sword from the goblin's head with a swift movement. He then states that it was his blade that did the job. So, he faces the villagers and asks why they sacrificed the girl. He wants to understand the reason for their cowardly act. And what's more to a demon, which makes the situation even more serious. The villagers just remain silent with nothing to say. The village leader begins to explain that the forest was full of goblins. They moved there after their lands dried up. But a while ago, something strange happened, and the goblins started attacking them. No one knows the reason for the change in behavior. They were so fierce that casualties began to pile up quickly. The villagers had no choice but to fight back. So, the men of the village gathered and set out to exterminate the creatures. They were determined to protect their families. But there, they saw something that left them completely terrified and hopeless. A demonic creature was leading the goblin army. They didn't have the strength to face the demon and its army. The villagers surrendered in complete despair, having no other option. The creature didn't eliminate them but made a terrible demand in return. It would return the following week to collect a sacrifice. From each family, it demanded the sacrifice of their most useless child, a cruel order that left all the villagers devastated. The merchant is shocked and asks if other children have already been taken. He can't believe they obeyed the demon's order. One of the villagers gets angry and asks who else they could sacrifice. He says they couldn't give up their older children. Our hero gets angry and smashes the table with a single punch. The force of the blow startles everyone in the room. With a serious look, he asks how many horns the creature had on its head. The question catches the village leader completely off guard. The man replies that the demon had no horns on its head. The information leaves our hero thoughtful and suspicious. Kadim remains silent for a moment, processing the new information. He seems to be putting together a puzzle in his mind. With that, our hero picks up his sword and tells them to guide him. The village leader is confused and asks where he wants to go. The guy stares at him and asks where he thinks they're going now. With a determined look, he says it's to the demon's lair. The village leader repeats that the demon had no horns on its head. Our hero thinks that if it has no horns, it's a weak demon and won't be hard to deal with. With that, he picks up his sword and tells the man to guide him to the location. The village leader is confused and asks where he wants to go now. The guy stares at him and asks where else he thinks they would go. With a determined look, he says it's to the demon's lair. So, the villagers light their torches to illuminate the dark path. From there, everyone follows our hero through the forest at night. The leader apologizes, saying they have no way to pay for his service. But Kadim says he has his own reasons and doesn't need a reward. The man is very grateful and calls the warrior Sir Mercenary. Our hero grabs an axe, saying he needs another weapon. A moment later, they arrive at the entrance of a dark and sinister cave. The leader points and says the monster terrorizing them is inside. With his new axe in hand, he prepares for the battle to come. Scared, the village leader says they'll go back and wait. He makes the excuse that goblins might attack the village. The merchant is shocked and asks what he means by that. He can't believe they all came just to guide and are now going to run away. Our hero says cowards only get in the way and tells the merchant to come with him. He needs someone to hold the torch while he fights. Not understanding a thing, the poor man just watches the others leave. This was definitely not what he expected to happen. And so, the two enter the dark and silent cave. The merchant trembles in fear, holding the torch tightly. From there, he asks why the warrior didn't criticize the villagers. They sacrificed their children, and didn't even try to rescue them. Kadim just looks at him and asks if he's ever faced a live demon. The merchant stammers and replies no, but he's seen bodies on the black market. Our hero explains that a person is never the same after fighting one. The will to live is crushed, and only fear and despair remain. You can't expect self-control from ordinary people in situations like that. Even so, the man questions how they could sacrifice their own children. He says that even animals value their young. Kadim explains they made a choice to survive and can't be judged. They had no other option but that one. The merchant thinks that from the children's perspective, it's as if the world has abandoned them. He wonders what the point of living is if you abandon your own humanity. Our hero just keeps walking, and the man calls out to him, concerned. Our hero thinks the villagers are more human than he is. His morality became twisted after so many bloody battles. The merchant gets scared by the silence and changes the subject. He asks if the warrior thinks the children are still alive. Kadim is silent for a moment, thinking about the question. He seems to analyze all the possibilities before answering. He says that if the creature is cruel and cunning, it kept them alive. A less cruel demon would have finished them off a long time ago. The merchant is confused and doesn't understand what he meant. He panics when he sees the warrior suddenly raise his axe. With a focused look, our hero prepares to attack. The merchant screams in despair, thinking he's next. Without hesitation, the guy throws the weapon with all his might. The axe flies through the darkness of the cave like a projectile. The merchant cowers in fear and screams, terrified by the action. He can't believe what just happened. The axe spins in the air with impressive speed. The weapon flies towards a target we can't see yet. A moment later, the weapon hits something in the darkness of the cave. The sound of the impact echoes through the silent place. Kadim turns and extends a hand to the scared merchant. The man is confused, not understanding the warrior's gesture. In the darkness, the legs of a bizarre, green creature emerge. It seems to be slowly approaching the two of them. Turns out, the axe hit a goblin right in the head. The merchant is shocked to see the creature lying on the ground. The monster groans in pain with the weapon embedded in its skull. In the background, other goblins with red eyes watch the scene. With that, an army of furious goblins charges to attack. They scream in anger, ready to avenge their comrade. The merchant screams in terror, wondering where so many monsters came from. Our hero just tells him to keep the torch steady and not to tremble. Wasting no time, the warrior stumps hard on the ground and charges into battle. He doesn't seem intimidated by the number of enemies. Facing an attack from a mohawked goblin, our hero prepares to counter. The creature screams in surprise as it sees the blade approaching. With a swift strike, the guy pierces the monster right through the chest. The creature screams in pain, but the attack doesn't stop there. He then grabs the goblin's arm with immense force. The creature has no chance of escaping his grasp. From there, he uses one of the monsters as a shield and attacks another. The goblins scream in fury at the bizarre sight. With his sword stuck in the rock, he notices a small problem with the area. The stalagmites in the cave will make it difficult to use his sword. He needs space to fight more freely. Meanwhile, the goblins regroup and snarl with pure rage. They prepare to attack all at once. Faced with the situation, our hero wraps a cloth around his hand. He does this to get a firmer grip on his weapon. With his sword in hand, he faces the horde of ugly creatures. The warrior is more than ready for the next round. With that, he charges again with a swift and precise strike. The blade cuts through the air towards the next target. The attack hits one of the monsters right in the eye without mercy. The creature doesn't even have time to react to the fatal blow. He then becomes a blur of fury and blood in the middle of the cave. The warrior cuts down any goblin that dares to get in his way. Covered in blood, our hero faces the remaining enemies. The battle is far from over, but he's not giving up. Seeing the axe embedded in the monster, he thinks he should use it too. With that, he pulls his weapon from the creature's head without any difficulty. He then throws himself into the midst of the monsters with his two weapons. The scene quickly turns into a bloodbath. From there, he slices up the enemies that appear before him. The monsters don't stand a chance to fight back. The head of one of the creatures flies through the air from a clean strike. A moment later, the creature's head falls to the ground with a dull thud. Seeing the brutal scene, the merchant turns pale and nearly throws up. He can hardly believe our hero took them all down by himself. The cave is completely filled with bodies. Faced with this massacre, the remaining goblins scream and flee. They try to escape to the back of the cave. The man warns that the creatures are fleeing, with the bloody axe in his hand. Our hero says they'll go after them, as they'll lead them to the demon. And so, the two continue their journey through the cave's interior. The torch illuminates the dark and dangerous path. The merchant notices that the path suddenly opens up into a wide space. He comments that the walls seem to have been carved and wonders if this is the goblin's base. But our hero ignores him and starts sniffing the air intently. He seems to have sensed something very strange. He warns that there's a demon nearby, and the merchant panics. Our hero tells him to stay back but not to run from the area. The warrior explains that the goblins would hunt him down if he tried to escape, and he tells him to use the torch to defend himself if necessary. With a focused look, he prepares for what's to come, and so he moves with incredible speed through the cave. Suddenly, a red creature attacks him with its sharp claws. The guy falls to the ground, wounded, and the merchant screams in despair. The red demon says it's never seen a human like him before. The creature realizes he's not just a simple villager. With a bizarre smile, it finds the whole situation very interesting. Our hero realizes the situation is bad and different from what he heard. He notices that the creature's horns are small but growing. At this discovery, our hero gets annoyed. The creature stares at the warrior with a look full of malice. He understands that the horns mean the monster is evolving. The creature is moving from a low level to an intermediate one. The demon enjoys the look of concern on the warrior's face, so the monster charges full speed at our hero. Faced with the situation, our hero braces for the impact of the attack. With that, he crosses his weapons and blocks the creature's powerful blow. The demon says it likes humans because they're weak and obey orders. Kadim thinks he only managed to block the blow out of pure battle instinct. And so, he confirms that the creature's strength is not that of a weak demon. The monster complains that he took out too many goblins and now it hates humans. The guy knows that a mid-level demon is much stronger than a low-level one. The creature then says, with a bizarre smile, that it will give him a chance to live. From there, it points to the warrior's arm with its sharp claws, and it orders him to cut off his own arm with the axe and eat it to survive. Our hero thinks that the creature's horns haven't fully grown yet. The demon gets annoyed and asks why he isn't obeying its order. Kadim then stabs his sword into the ground, saying the monster talks too much. Next, he grabs his canteen and says he doesn't take orders from a blood bag. Without hesitation, he cuts the canteen, and the demon blood starts to flow. The demon smells a familiar scent and is completely shocked. The creature can't believe a human would have that, and watches our hero drink the blood. A moment later, the now empty canteen falls to the ground with a dry thud. With that, our hero is enveloped in a terrifying red aura. He screams in pain as the blood's power courses through his entire body. The monster stares at the scene, not understanding what's happening. The guy's eyes glow with an intense and very threatening red. He says the blood is old but still works, and that he needs to be quick. The creature wonders if it felt fear from a human and immediately denies it. Full of rage, the demon says it's going to end the warrior's life. From there, the monster advances with its claws ready for the attack. Kadim thinks the creature's judgment is clouded by its new horns. The creature's claws approach at high speed to tear him apart, but our hero can now see all its movements. Thus, he prepares a powerful counter-attack with his axe. The demon screams in pain and surprise from the force of the blow. Our hero looks at his axe and notices that it's cracked. He grabs his sword and says that if the weapons break, he'll fight with his fists. The creature snarls in rage as it stares at the warrior, not believing what it's seeing. With hatred, the monster screams that it will never forgive a simple human like him. Kadim takes a step forward, preparing to continue the battle. He then charges forward with his sword in a swift and brutal motion. The guy spins his body and delivers a horizontal slash with all his might. The blade clashes with the demon's claws, and the creature screams in pain. With the impact of the blow, the monster is thrown back violently. The creature wonders what kind of strength this human possesses. Without giving it time to recover, our hero attacks again. The axe hits the creature squarely, causing significant damage. Faced with the situation, the guy continues to attack without any mercy. The demon wonders how a human can have such destructive power. The creature screams desperately as it's thrown back with force. The monster tries to fight back, but our hero grabs its claws. A moment later, he lands a solid punch right in the creature's chest. With the force of the punch, the demon flies far away and screams in pure pain. Kadim prepares to finish the fight with his sword in hand. The creature sees the blade coming towards it and panics. From there, the warrior spins his body and launches an all-out attack. He shouts, putting all his strength into that final blow. The demon still tries to retreat, but it's too late for it. The power of the attack is so great that it shatters the entire cave floor. With that, the creature falls to the ground, totally defeated and wounded. Scared, the monster asks what our hero really is. Kadim stares at it, and the creature says he's definitely not human. With a cold look, the guy just observes his enemy's desperation. The creature concludes that he's a monster in human skin and panics. The creature screams in despair as our hero throws it far away. With that, the creature slams into the cave wall with a dull thud. The monster thinks that attacking head-on is useless as it's being blocked. In a panic, it yells for the goblins to back off and becomes confused. Turns out, it sees the merchant being surrounded by the creatures in the back. The poor man yells for the monsters to stay away and threatens them with the torch. The torch's flame illuminates the cave's darkness with its bright light. Seeing this, the demon thinks that if it gets rid of that fire, it will have a chance. Meanwhile, our hero's sword remains stuck in the stone floor. The creature then leaps towards the merchant, and the guy notices immediately. Wasting no time, Kadim picks up his axe that was on the ground. A moment later, he prepares to throw the weapon with precision. Our hero says it's obvious what the monster is trying to do. With a determined look, he affirms that he won't let the creature succeed. The demon flies towards the man, but the warrior is ready to act. Our hero thinks the creature is fast and will dodge the attack. Faced with this, he comes up with a new idea to handle the situation. With the axe in hand, he prepares for a different move. He decides he's going to smash the ground where the monster is jumping. And so, he throws the weapon with all his might at the cave floor. The creature is shocked by the warrior's unexpected strategy. The axe spins in the air at high speed towards its target. From there, the weapon hits the ground and causes a large explosion of rocks. The goblins and the merchant are confused by the sound of the explosion. The demon is caught in the blast and is thrown back by the impact. The explosion of dust and rocks spreads throughout the dark cave. With the floor destroyed, the creature loses all its balance in the air. The monster screams in rage as dust gets in its eyes, blinding it. Our hero seizes the opportunity and stumps hard on the ground. A moment later, he charges forward to finish the creature once and for all. The blade pierces through the demon's face, which screams in pure agony. The monster screams desperately in pain with the sword embedded in its skull. Our hero says with a smile that the creature's face looks better now. Even wounded, the demon screams that it will end the warrior's life. Kadim is surprised that it's still alive even with its head pierced. With that, he grips the hilt of his sword much tighter. He then says the creature is becoming a major nuisance. Without hesitation, he twists the blade, and the monster screams for him to stop. With a swift movement, he pulls the sword upwards, slicing the creature. And so, he finishes the creature by splitting its head in half. The monster's head explodes, and it just snarls before falling to the ground. The creature's lifeless body falls with a dull thud in the dust. The red aura disappears, and he realizes the blood's effect is wearing off. He breathes a sigh of relief, as he almost faced the demon without the extra power. Suddenly, he hears a voice calling him king and is very confused. Turns out, it was the goblins, who were now desperately calling him king. He realizes the creature's ferocity vanished with the demon's demise. Even so, he tightens his grip on his sword, ready for action. A moment later, he charges forward and cuts off one of the monster's heads without mercy. He thinks they've already turned into monsters and decides to finish them all right there. Seeing the scene, the other creature gets scared and screams in pure terror. Without hesitation, the warrior continues the massacre and pierces another creature in the chest. The monster doesn't even have time to react and screams before falling to the ground gone. With that, he continues the slaughter and notices one fleeing with its back to him. At the same time, he sees the last monster holding the merchant's torch. He stares at the creature and says it's the last one left to take out. But the merchant screams desperately and calls out for our hero. The poor man screams for his lord with a sword at his neck. Our hero is shocked by the unexpected turn of events. Turns out, the goblin is using the merchant as a hostage in the cave. The goblin trembles nervously and threatens our hero with the sword. He yells that if the warrior takes one more step, the merchant is done for. The poor man freezes in fear with the blade at his neck. Kadim watches the scene with a cold, calculating look, unfazed. He seems to be thinking of a solution to the problem. Suddenly, the merchant asks if he's okay and the guy apologizes. The effect of the demon blood seems to have worn off. The man says the children must be deeper inside the cave, and the warrior tells them to finish off the remaining goblins. Scared, the merchant agrees and feels safer with the hero. He just keeps holding the torch to provide light. And so, the two continue through the darkness, dragging the demon's body. They are now looking for the kidnapped children. Back in the village, a woman shouts that the children are back. All the villagers run to see if it's true. From there, the parents run and hug their children emotionally. Relief fills the place after so much suffering. With that, everyone thanks our hero for saving the children. The merchant is scared by the demon on his shoulder. An old woman offers a stew to the mercenary as a thank you. She invites him to have some at her house, but he tells her to give the food to the children, who must be hungry. They spent the whole night crying in fear and hunger. He then tells the merchant to go eat, and the man asks what he'll do. Kadim says he first needs to rest a bit. A moment later, the warrior turns and walks away, leaving everyone behind. He seems very tired after so many fights. In the middle of the happy crowd, one of the boys stares into space, scared. The trauma from the cave is still written all over his face. The merchant becomes thoughtful upon seeing the traumatized boy's expression. Suddenly, he remembers what he saw inside the dark cave and panics. He saw the children huddled and terrified, hearing horrible words. They were begging for their parents not to abandon them. Our hero explains they were brainwashed in the cave. The merchant is shocked by the revelation. The creature kept repeating to them that their parents had abandoned them. Moreover, the monster told them they were the most useless children in the world. That mental torture was so powerful that not even a priest could withstand it. Kadim says it can't even be called brainwashing. The demon just reinforced a fact that was already real for them. The man despairs, thinking they'll never recover from this. He asks why the creature would do something so horrible. The warrior explains that it's in the nature of demons to feed on suffering. Human despair is their greatest source of power. The merchant falls silent, not knowing what to say in the face of such cruelty. From there, he understands why a less cruel demon would have just ended them. It would have been a much quicker and less painful end. He then asks if the parents' remorse couldn't heal them. Sincerity and love could change the situation. Our hero says it's not impossible, but he highly doubts it. Parents who abandon their children once are capable of doing it again. The merchant is speechless and just reflects on the grim future. The merchant turns and decides to follow the warrior without further questions. And so, the two leave the village, and the traumatized boy watches them. The man runs after him and asks why they're leaving already. He suggests they rest, but Kadim says witnesses must have already appeared. He explains that taking out a paladin is a crime that won't be ignored. At this, the merchant remembers that the barbarian took out a paladin of Elga. Our hero warns that trackers might be on their tail, and they need to hurry. Far away, two female warriors observe a grim scene full of crows. One of them looks at the situation with a serious and very determined expression. Back in the village, Kadim squeezes the demon's head with his hand. With that, he begins to extract the creature's blood for a purpose. A moment later, he fills his canteen with the defeated monster's blood. He thinks half a canteen is enough, and that he's accomplished his goal there. From there, he crushes what's left of the creature's head on the ground. The village leader approaches and asks what he'll do with the demon's body. Our hero says he doesn't need the body and tells them to burn everything. The villagers are shocked by his order. The leader wonders why he would burn such a valuable demon. He thought the warrior was after money. With that, the man thinks that if he keeps the body, he can sell it later. He could get a lot of money from a paladin of the Alliance. But the warrior warns that if they don't burn it, the smell will spread. This would attract other monsters to the village. He glares at them and asks if they want another attack from furious goblins. Faced with the threat, the leader becomes embarrassed and stammers in pure fear. He immediately agrees and says they were just about to burn the creature's body. As our hero is leaving, one of the villagers calls out to him. She says the villagers have gathered some items as a thank you, and asks him to accept their gift. Kadim looks at the gifts and says he'll make good use of everything. A moment later, he puts on the new belt he got from the villagers. He finds the gear decent and tells them to leave immediately. Suddenly, a sharp pain hits our hero's chest. The merchant is confused, and the warrior realizes it's the wound from the paladin. He thinks his body's recovery is insane, as he's already healed from the fight, but the paladin's wound hasn't healed in 10 days. He thinks the spear was a consecrated and unusual weapon. The scene shifts to the site of the fight, with the paladin's weapon on the ground. At that moment, a female knight named Helia arrives to investigate the situation. Her partner says he found no clues, and she calls him pathetic. She notes that the prisoners perished and nothing was stolen, so it wasn't a rescue. The knight asks if she has any unholy group in mind as the culprit. Helia gets furious and calls him an idiot for not understanding the culprit's intention. The warrior complains that this is why he hasn't moved up in rank for so long. The guy thinks she's arrogant but can't talk back because of who she is. Turns out she's Archpaladin Helia, who defeated 20 demons single-handedly. Being the youngest in the Empire, her personality is bad, but her skills are real. The knight gets frustrated because he knows a mere paladin is no match for her. With nothing else to do, he just accepts the situation and follows the warrior. Suddenly, Helia tells him to get the holy relic the archbishop gave them. He's shocked and says the other Damien's twin mirror broke less than 10 years ago. Damien's twin mirrors were relics that could see the future and the past, but the one for the future broke upon seeing a very powerful being. Helia gets furious and says the relic was meant to be used in dead-end situations. She reminds him that the victim was the archbishop's nephew. The warrior calms him down, saying the mirror would only break if it reflected an archdemon, so there was nothing to worry about. Still hesitant, the knight hands the sacred artifact to his superior, and so, she kneels on the grass with the relic in her hands to begin. A moment later, the object begins to glow with a very intense light. With that, a powerful purple energy shoots out from the mirror towards the sky. The relic shows a barbarian drinking demon blood amidst the battle. The vision reveals the paladin screaming for everyone to run while Helia watches, shocked. The barbarian's eyes glow with an intense and furious red in the vision. Suddenly, the holy mirror starts to crack and shatters into 1,000 pieces. Both warriors are in complete shock, seeing the destroyed relic on the ground. He says that's impossible, as it meant the mirror reflected an archdemon. Terrified, the knight suggests they go back and report what happened, but Helia smiles and asks why they would go back now that the culprit has been revealed. She looks at her partner and says they will continue the search for the culprit. The knight is shocked by his superior's decision. And so, the warrior grips the hilt of her sword very firmly. Her determination is unshakable, and she's not giving up. With that, an aura of power envelops her body as she prepares. She is more than ready to hunt down our hero. With a look full of hatred, she swears she will finish that demon. She herself will take care of executing the warrior. The scene shifts, and we see the merchant by a riverbank at night. He seems very thoughtful and worried about something. He thinks he can't stop worrying about the village children. It reminds him of his own 8-year-old son at home. From there, he shakes his head to banish the bad thoughts. He needs to pull himself together if he wants to continue the journey. He grabs his water canteen and decides he needs to stick with the barbarian. It's the only way he'll get back to his family alive. A moment later, he returns to the camp where our hero is resting. The warrior is lying near the extinguished campfire. The man apologizes for the delay and says dinner is almost ready. But he finds it strange that the guy is already lying down. Not understanding a thing, the poor merchant just stares at the scene, confused. Suddenly, he notices our hero is sweating and in pain. He calls out for his lord, concerned about the situation. The merchant wonders how someone who tears demons apart can end up like this. He doesn't understand what could have happened to the warrior. Faced with the situation, he despairs upon seeing the wound on the guy's chest. The cut is open and looks much worse than before. Our hero thinks he should have realized this much earlier. Turns out, the paladin's weapon was a consecrated weapon. He remembers the weapon was blessed to cause fatal damage to demons. Normally, this wouldn't affect an ordinary human. But he's a berserker who gains power through demon blood. With that, he has no choice but to be affected by the blessing. The merchant says they should have rested in the village for more days. Our hero replies that this isn't a wound that heals with rest. He then asks the man what phase the moon was in the previous night. The merchant replies, confused, that it was a waxing crescent moon. Our hero is relieved because he didn't miss the right time. He thinks that if it's tonight, he still has a chance to save himself. Suddenly, a loud sound echoes through the dark and silent forest. Both of them are on high alert from the unexpected noise. The merchant turns, scared, and asks what that sound could be. A moment later, several howls are heard, and many glowing eyes appear. Faced with the situation, a furry paw with sharp claws steps on the ground. A giant, furious wolf appears, snarling at them in the camp. The merchant screams in terror upon recognizing the blade wolves. Kadim just looks at the situation with a serious expression and sighs tiredly, so he grabs his axe and sword, preparing to fight. He tells the man to stay back, and the merchant worries about his condition. With an annoyed look, our hero thinks the world just won't leave him in peace. He glares at the wolf pack and calls them blasted mutts. With his weapons in hand, he says they chose a terrible time to show up, and so the wolf pack charges with full force to attack the wounded warrior. Even with blurred vision and in pain, he prepares for the battle to come. The creatures run in a pack, ready for a bloodbath in the camp. One of the wolves then leaps with its sharp claws to tear our hero apart. Wasting no time, the guy retaliates with a powerful blow from his axe. The weapon hits the creature's head squarely with brutal and terrifying force. From there, the creature flies far away from the impact, and the others are startled by the scene. He thinks his vision is shaking, which is why he can't aim properly. Faced with the situation, two other wolves take the chance to attack together. With that, our hero prepares to counter with his sharp sword. He tries to hit one of the creatures, but the other attacks him from the side without mercy. A moment later, the warrior finds himself completely surrounded by the fierce monsters. With no other option, he lands a solid punch on the face of one of the creatures. With the creature in his hands, he snarls in rage and glares at the rest of the pack. He uses one of the wolves as a weapon and throws it forcefully at another. With a focused look, he shows no sign of weakness in combat, and so he uses the creature's body to defend against another attack. A moment later, he smashes the two wolves into each other without any mercy. With an annoyed look, he seems to be losing patience with the pack. From there, he throws the creature aside and prepares for the next one. Even wounded, he's already taken down several, but the fight isn't over yet. Faced with the situation, the remaining wolves regroup and snarl in rage. He realizes the creatures are experienced hunters and have reorganized. His body won't hold out for much longer like this. Suddenly, he turns and yells for the merchant to stay back. The man tries to help and uses the campfire to scare the creatures away. He yells for the beasts to get away from him at once. He thinks that drinking that is like taking poison in his current state. But he knows he has no other choice at the moment. At the same time, the wolves seem to sense something and become alert. Without hesitation, our hero drinks the demon blood from his canteen. A moment later, the now empty canteen falls to the ground with a dull thud. With that, a powerful red aura envelopes our hero. The remaining wolves stare at him with a new posture. The creatures back away slightly and snarl in fear of the warrior's power. They sense that something very dangerous has just awakened. His eyes glow with an intense and completely terrifying red. The demon's blood has finally started to take effect in his body. In the blink of an eye, he charges and cuts one of the creatures in half. The speed of his attack is simply absurd and fatal. Meanwhile, the merchant is still trying to defend himself with lit torches. The wolves surround him, snarling with pure rage and hunger. Suddenly, two creatures leap at the poor man without hesitation. He has no chance of escaping the deadly attack. The man screams in despair, thinking his end has finally come. The scene is one of pure terror and desperation for the poor guy. But our hero appears like a blur and cuts down both wolves. He manages to save the merchant at the last possible second. From there, the battle turns into a total and bloody massacre. The warrior gives the monsters no chance to fight back. He thinks the Berserker buff changes with the type of blood he consumes. This time, the power he gains seems to be different. He glares at the remaining wolves with a look full of fury and power. The hunt is still far from over for him. With red eyes, he prepares for the next round of the battle. The aura of power around him only continues to grow. Faced with the situation, he unleashes all his power and gains an agility buff. His speed increases drastically and absurdly. He remembers that the red demon was very fast and agile. As he imagined, this is the effect of that creature's blood. Seeing the warrior's power, the remaining creatures retreat in great fear. They know they have no chance of winning now. The merchant desperately shouts that the creatures are running away. He calls out to the warrior, not understanding what's happening. But our hero knows they're not fleeing, but repositioning. The red aura around him remains intense and dangerous. Suddenly, a huge furry paw stumps hard on the campground. Faced with the situation, the merchant is startled by the new threat that has emerged. Turns out, a new wolf has appeared for the battle. With a face full of scars, the creature glares at our hero with hatred. That beast is definitely much stronger than the others. The man warns that this monster is strange and twice the size. Kadam immediately understands that this creature is the pack leader. To make matters worse, he realizes the blood's effect is already wearing off. The red aura around him begins to fade. Wasting no time, the alpha wolf charges with full force, and our hero tries to block. He wonders what kind of power this is, and if the beast wants to crush him. The creature's strength is much greater than he expected. With the effort, he feels a sharp pain, and the pressure only increases. Unable to hold on any longer, the warrior coughs, and the situation becomes very dangerous. With that, the red aura vanishes, and he's thrown back by the impact. The merchant screams in despair and asks if his lord is okay. He tells him to wake up because the giant wolf is approaching them. He feels a sharp pain in his chest, and the paladin's wound starts bleeding again. The giant wolf snarls, and the merchant tries to help our hero. The warrior looks up at the sky and thinks the conditions are almost right. The merchant is confused by his attitude in the midst of danger. With a focused look, he prepares for what's about to happen. His eyes widen as he feels the moment has finally arrived. He looks at the sky and realizes it's midnight on a moonless night. From there, he plunges his sword with all his might into the campground. He invokes Athala, the undefeated master of all weapons, and makes a request. He asks Athala to bless him and quench his thirst with the blood of his enemies. The merchant doesn't understand anything that's happening. The guy says that now that the moon is gone, he discards his name on the blade. At this, a golden aura explodes from him, and the wolf stares at the scene. The creature is shocked by the energy and backs away slightly in fear. The merchant screams in terror and asks what's happening to him. Our hero is enveloped in an intense pillar of golden fire. A mysterious voice asks what name he will give to his new sword. He remembers the resonance of what he felt in his first life. The sword in his hands pulses with a familiar and very powerful energy. With his eyes glowing, he decides the name he will give the blade is Mosquito. A golden aura explodes from him with absurd and overwhelming force. All his power concentrates on the weapon he holds firmly. With that, an intense glow appears on the blade of the newly named sword. The weapon seems to have accepted the new name it received from the warrior. A red symbol that looks like a mosquito appears on the weapon. The mark represents the power that now inhabits that blade. He smiles, and a unique trait is activated because of his actions. He is the one who discards his own name to strengthen the weapon. Seeing that bizarre scene, the merchant screams in terror, not understanding anything. A moment later, he pulls the sword from the ground with a swift movement. The ritual is complete, and he's ready for the next round. From there, he charges with full force at the giant wolf. The creature doesn't even have time to blink with the speed of the attack. The monster snarls in rage and prepares for the impact of the blow. The battle between the two is finally about to restart. A special effect of the weapon is activated, and a dark aura envelopes it. The blade now possesses the ability to steal the life of its targets. With that, a bit of his life is recovered and his wounds are healed. He feels much better and says he can breathe again now. The creature stares at the scene with its yellow eyes and snarls with pure rage. Our hero says that's still not enough for him, and with a challenging look, he calls the beast to fight once more. Wasting no time, he attacks and hits the wolf's face squarely. The creature's blood flies everywhere from the blow. With a precise strike, he hits the giant wolf's head squarely. The sword's blade glows with a red and dark energy. Our hero holds his new weapon with firmness and power. The creature's blood runs down the newly named blade. With that, the life steal effect activates, and all his wounds heal. A small amount of his life is also recovered. He's surprised because even the fatal wound from the curse has healed. That power was definitely much more than he expected. Faced with the wolves' bodies, he thinks it was a blessing. The pack appeared at just the right time for him to heal. He looks at the sword and says the effect is called Life Steal. He recovers vitality whenever he damages an enemy, but the efficiency is low because it's a low-level weapon. It would be useless against enemies that have no blood to steal. He sighs in relief and decides that for now, this is enough. There's no need to overdo it or risk more. The biggest advantage is being able to apply special effects without using materials. And he can do this again with other weapons in the future. He remembers a lesson he learned from his past life. Wanting too much from the start only brings more problems. Hiding behind a tree, the merchant asks fearfully. He wants to know if the battle is finally really over. He sees all the wolves on the ground and can't believe what happened. The warrior won even when he was on the brink of his end. As he approaches, he's shocked to see that all the wounds have vanished. Not just the bites, but even the paladin's cut has healed. Our hero looks at him seriously and asks an unexpected question. He wants to know why the man didn't take the chance to run away. The poor guy is completely confused by the warrior's question. He has no idea what he's supposed to answer at that moment. Our hero says that if the man had run, he would have never caught him. The merchant is shocked, not understanding what he meant. From there, the poor guy starts to think about the whole situation. He scratches his chin and tries to understand the warrior's logic. Suddenly, he shouts as if he has finally understood everything. The warrior says that even if he had fled, the wolves would have hunted him down. The merchant immediately denies it, saying he didn't think about running. He wonders why he didn't try to escape and questions his reason, and concludes that he was too worried about the wounded barbarian. Kadam says he's exhausted and needs to sleep for a bit now. He then tells the man to keep watch during the night, but he warns that if the merchant runs, he'd better go to the ends of the earth. If he catches him, he'll do horrible things to the poor guy. The man freezes in fear and thinks that coming from a barbarian, it's no joke. He certainly believes the warrior's threat is real. With no other choice, the poor man just obeys and keeps watch. He spends the entire night awake by the campfire. The scene shifts to the next day, and we see the merchant looking very tired. He says they have 10 days until they reach the Alliance territory. They need to go south to avoid the Empire's patrols. Our hero says he'd prefer not to encounter any more paladins if possible. The man explains that the route has fewer patrols, but they might run into bandits. But he adds that for someone as strong as the warrior, bandits are no problem. He points to a castle on the map and suggests they stop to restock on food. The place is called Morden, and the roads to it are good. The merchant points out a shortcut on the map, called the Golden Road. From there, they can go straight to Vistana without any problems. Our hero thinks the journey won't be easy, but it's better than in the past. He remembers how much harder things were before. 300 years ago, the eastern part of the continent was a battlefield. Kingdoms and cities competed for power, and no one accepted outsiders. Being a giant barbarian, things were even worse for him. People looked at him with suspicion and fear because of his appearance. He remembers a girl who looked at him as if he were an insect. She was a mage who lived as a scholar and her name was Melissa. She took notes about him, describing him as an ogre. She even thought he might be a criminal involved in human trafficking. He smiles as he remembers those notes from their first meeting, a useless memory, but one that makes him think about the past. The merchant calms him down, saying the Alliance is more open these days. People there don't care as much about his appearance. The man insists it's true, but the warrior doesn't seem to believe him. He keeps his serious and suspicious expression. Suddenly, they see a group of men in the middle of the road. They seem to be arguing and blocking the path. Kadim asks the merchant what he thinks is happening there. He replies that they look like bandits, but the other group is different, and he's not sure what they're doing there. Our hero decides it's better to take a detour and avoid trouble. He doesn't want to get involved in any unnecessary mess. Suddenly, one of the hooded men seems to have noticed the two of them. Without hesitation, the man points at them and shouts to call them over. The situation has just become much more complicated than they expected. Annoyed with the situation, our hero thinks this is a real pain. With no other choice, he approaches the group of men on the road. He grabs his weapons and prepares for what might happen. As the warrior approaches, the group of men gets startled. Our hero just glares at them with a serious and intimidating look. Suddenly, one of the men shouts, his eye glowing gold. A moment later, he claps his hands as if celebrating something. The men then approach and say they knew he would come. They invite him to join them in the fight. Meanwhile, the other group of bandits takes the chance to flee. The man laughs and calls them rats as they run in fear. He says he knew he could count on the boss. With an annoyed look, our hero asks what they're doing. The man apologizes and thanks him for coming to help, and calls him the Raging Horn of Aegon. To his surprise, the warrior sighs and says he's not who they think he is. He warns that he has a long way to go and tells them to get out of the way. The men are shocked and ask if he's not the so-called Raging Horn. Not knowing what to say, the two just stare at each other in silence. The man draws his dagger and asks who he really is. Full of rage, he shouts, asking who he thinks he is to confuse them. He calls him a nobody who appeared out of nowhere. The merchant is startled by the reaction, but our hero is unfazed.